Namaste everyone, Yoga Chris here, and I wanted to talk about fasting. Fasting is an extraordinary experience of clearing the surface clutter in your mind, obviously clearing the clutter in your body, and contracting in a way closer to the source, closer to your source. You can imagine if you starved yourself, if you fasted indefinitely and you were to somehow die from not eating any food, you return to source. So it's a continual reducing of what's in your mind, what's in your body, returning to source. Now, to do this in a kind of practice, now I'm not the kind of person that, I don't have world records for longest fasts held. My longest fasts are 4 days, 5 days, and normally it's just 1 day. But the mentality of going through a fast, being ever vigilant about what you're putting into your body, is very important to translate to other areas of your life. Me personally, one of the most variables that I'm most cautious about is what I'm hearing. What am I feeding my mind through my sense of hearing? Musically, lyrically, on the news, what am I studying? What are the people saying around me? And here's the key, what am I saying to myself? The fast, meaning not eating food, really heightens your awareness and your sensitivity to what's your internal dialogue, what's going on around you as far as what are you feeding your mind, which should be included in the fast. At least an awareness of that. I mean, on the deepest, most ascetic aspects of fasting, you might renounce all activity. You might not get up, or you just stay seated all day, or until the fast is over. No talking. These things like this. Ultimately, you can't limit the sounds from nature, but maybe you put earplugs in. So there's a level of extreme. However, the point of why I'm saying all of this is because in the fast, a lot of those limiting statements, or it doesn't necessarily mean like a limitation in what I'm about to do, but it's a limitation in how good I will allow myself to feel right now. And limiting statements such as complaining statements, whining, like, oh, I'm hungry, my energy's not high enough to do that. Or another thing, fasting will kind of stir up a lot of old memories, so then you kind of get swept away by indulging and becoming attached and reliving these memories and these scenes in your head. And you can weather that. I was a wrestler and I would fast or limit caloric intake for long periods of time, and meanwhile stay at a high level of physical exertion. And so you can tough it out and get through it, but that's not the point of the fast. We're not trying to solidify rigidity and willpower. I mean, that will naturally be fortified as you just accomplish your own goals. Your willpower increases as you just set goals and accomplish them. So fasting doesn't need to be that means. You can do little things like cleaning your house or making a bullet list of actions you need to take, and as you accomplish those actions, your willpower becomes fortified. Don't use fasting as a means to fortify your will. Use fasting as a means to cleanse the body, to clear away the clutter of your mind so that you can more deeply access your mind, especially your unconscious mind. And so to become aware of what you're telling yourself is just a phenomenal spiritual practice in life. And the process of fasting, of limiting there's a difference between limiting what you eat and not eating. So fasting, not eating, really stirs up a lot of wonderful opportunities for you to investigate, what am I saying to myself before I have this emotion? Because emotions don't just come unless you say to yourself something before. The feeling doesn't come unless there's a sentence with it, or a thought at least. Maybe it isn't articulated in a sentence. And because the fast tends to kind of quiet your mind, you're less out there, you're more efficient in what you're doing, it becomes more easily accessible and more possible to observe what sentences or what thoughts are you having before the feeling is coming up, before you partake in some random action. And so I'm inviting you to do a couple things. The first is be aware of what sounds you're feeding yourself while you're in the fast. Take that with you then when you break fast and you go back into your normal eating patterns. Retain that ability to be aware of what are you feeding your mind. It's probably rare, but there are people that don't care at all about what they eat. and that's fine. This can be something new. For those of you that are at least mindful about what you're eating, you know, limiting processed sugar or meat or whatever it is that is your diet, carbs, that can be translated, and it should be translated. It's too easy, it's too gross to just be vigilant on the food items that you're consuming. Much more powerful and potent than the food is the words that you're feeding yourself. And so use the fast to bolster your ability to be attentive to the words that you're feeding yourself, even from within. And then take that with you when the fast is over. The second thing that I'm inviting you to do is to be aware. It's kind of integrated to the first part. Be aware of your self-talk, especially when emotions come up, and especially when doing things that you don't necessarily, when there's a part of you that doesn't want to do them. Fasting helps clarify that internal argument of, you know, whatever. I do want to do this, but then I feel guilty about it, or I don't want to do this and then I feel shame about it. And that's nonsense. You're neither of those. Take a step back and observe that you're having that thought, and if you're having the thought, that means you're not the thought. You're having it. You're not anything that you can own, except that thing that can't be named. And so we don't name it. As soon as we try to name it, that's not you. So use the fast to clarify that there's things that you're telling yourself, sentences and statements that you're telling yourself before you're having the feeling. And then take that with you once you break fast. You carry it with you so that you can observe and notice when is it an argument, an internal argument. The argument happens when you take on the statement as valid, or the statement that created the emotion as valid. If you consider it valid, then argue with it. If not, just observe it, and then it becomes a very one-sided argument, and it will pass. See, the argument maintains the presence, one force pushing this way, one force pushing this way. I want to do this, but I feel guilt, or I want to do this and I feel shame, or whatever. But if you remove the argument, the force, it leaves, and then it becomes transient. And then you realize it wasn't you. So you just observe thoughts before feelings, and what you're feeding your mind from external and from internal. But that's kind of what the first part was. So if you found this video helpful, definitely like it, subscribe, share. I would like to announce also that on August 15th, my newest and highest level product is coming out. It's the Ashtanga Primary Series Pranayama. In Pranayama, you will gain a better ability, just like in fasting, because in a way, Pranayama, you're fasting from air as you hold your breath, or you're fasting from agitation. And it might not be the most accurate use of the word fast, you're abstaining in a way for a short period of time. And just getting a glimpse into what asceticism is, just for moments, minutes, maybe an hour if you do the full sequence, will then give you a better reference of the separation from your mind, your body, and you. And then you can reintegrate and carry that with you throughout the day. That comes out August 15th on 9thlimb.com. It's only $97, but for the first 24 hours, you can get it for only $47, which is a steal. I went all the way to India and trained for a month with Under a Guru and brought this back, and that costs a lot more than $47. So, again, namaste, people, and I'll see you in the next video. Chris